Hello, welcome back to our weekly Testimony Tuesday program. Today, I have with me my sweet friend, Ashlyn. Ashlyn, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share my story.
Awesome. So, Ashlyn has come through our program and is so willing to share, and I love her heart. So many times we get this idea, and even for me, because I'm a little bit older, and as I have served in this ministry for so long now, so many women that have been through our program are older, just typically speaking. And you were just such a breath of fresh air when you showed up and willing to first off go through the program. You did the work, and now you are boldly sharing your experience. So let's just dive in and just tell us about yourself and tell us your story.
All right, I'll start from the beginning. I was raised Christian in a Christian home. Mostly just went because my family went. It was normal. That was just my life. I didn't really understand who God was, but I had a feeling. I moved around a lot. My dad was in the Air Force, so was born in North Dakota, lived in Southern California for a while, then New Mexico, and then Nevada. So growing up until we moved from New Mexico, I was always in church, super involved. But when we moved to Las Vegas, my dad had gotten a job there. Everybody at our church told us not to go. It's the Sin City, and we shouldn't get away from the Lord. And we went anyway. Obviously, it wasn't my decision, but we did. And my mom decided we couldn't find a church that was like the one we went to before, so we just decided to stop going. And I was in seventh grade, so I didn't really have a whole lot of a choice. Didn't know anybody there, was having to make new friends again. So, after that, we mostly like things that we would do instead of going to church. We got really into watching TV and movies and playing games. My mom was always helping us like make friends by inviting our friends over for dinner or whatever, just to play. My mom was always open with the house, like open to our friends. Um, I didn't really get much freedom other than that. Like people were allowed to come over a lot, but I wasn't given a lot of leeway to go the other way around. But high school came around. I had been to like 9 different public schools up to high school. It was ridiculous. Um, so by the time I did get to high school in Las Vegas, I was like, okay, I've moved around a ton. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to stay at this school all 4 years. Like I would really like to do that. Um, and my sophomore year, I actually made friends with someone. Her mom was a pastor of a Methodist church. She invited me to go, and then she invited me to some youth groups, and I was really enjoying it. I was finding myself nostalgic from growing up and going to church and Sunday school. I went on a mission trip to San Diego, and that was really cool. I participated in camps, both as a camper and a leader, so that was really cool. I feel like I was kind of scratching the surface on my relationship with God. Um, I feel like it was pretty one-sided. I kind of just assumed, okay, I'm participating, I'm praying with the church, I'm going to church, so I'm saved, right? Like I prayed the prayer, so I'm saved. And um, junior year came along. A lot of stuff happened my junior year. Um, Changed my life. I thought for the worst. My parents got divorced at the beginning of the school year. They had been fighting and putting up with each other basically for years. They had discussed divorce a few times, and each time they would decide to put it on the back burner. Um, One of the reasons that they stayed together was for me and my brother and sister. My sister's 3 years younger than me, so uh, they just wanted to keep the family together, which I understand. Um, but the thing was, their relationship was so toxic that it affected us. Like that was the foundation of our lives, and that's all we knew. was fighting and arguing. But they finally did decide to divorce. Their last fight happened on my birthday, my 17th birthday. So that was memorable. It ended with cops and an ambulance and a whole bunch of shenanigans.
Oh my goodness.
It was pretty crazy. So after that, my dad decided he was going to move to California. He found a job out there. He took my sister with him because she was 13 or 14, I think. She didn't really have much of a choice. Sorry. He wanted me to go with him, and California sounded cool to go back to where I grew up, but I wanted to stay at my high school. And I wanted to go to the college, the university there in Las Vegas. Since 8th grade, when I took a tour of that school, I had wanted to go there. That was just my dream. So I decided to stay. However, my mom did not have a stable living situation, so I couldn't move in with her. Luckily, my friend whose mom was the pastor of that church, they took me in. My dad signed the parental rights over to them so that I could move in with them and they could be my guardians.
I didn't know this part of your story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. It was.
I went to high school in Vegas, but I didn't know some of this. So
Yeah, it was kind of strange the way it happened. But it was really nice to have a kind of like a family dynamic again. But with that came a lot of freedom. It was weird because they were my guardians, but they weren't my parents. So they saw me as very responsible, which I was pretty responsible for a 17-year-old. But I took advantage of that and started lying to them, lying about where I was. I would be spending time with boys and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I didn't start doing drugs yet, but I was drinking and just hanging around a bunch of people I should not have been around. So promiscuity and naivety, that was all my new norm at that point. It was like, I don't know, I think I was hungry for attention.
yeah.
I felt like no one really understood my circumstances, like every other teenager.
Yeah.
But that's how I felt. And I guess I felt connected when I was with people, particularly boys who paid attention to me because it made me feel special and beautiful.
Well, and not to throw your parents under the bus by any means, because divorce happens. I mean, I've had divorce in my life too, and I know that that's a reality. But that's a hard age for your parents to separate, and then your father figure, even though it may not have been the healthiest of home lives, he's gone. And it's natural for young girls to try to fill that void. And what I often say is that I was because I have not similar in a lot of ways, but similar in the promiscuity aspect of it, is I was trying to fill this Jesus-sized void in my heart with any guy that would give me the time of day. And that's real. And it's not good, not fun, but it's a reality of how brokenness works in a young girl's life. So thank you for sharing that. And I just, if you're watching tonight or today, just know that you're not alone in this, and that if you've had traumas in your past and you did things you're not proud of, like having a promiscuous lifestyle when you're young, and as we're fixing to get into some of this, but if that ended with abortion, please know that there is help available. And I don't want to jump the gun too much. We're going to go back to Ashlyn, but I just, sometimes when you hear this and you hear two people talking about these things, it may be hitting a trigger point for you where you're like, I can't believe they're saying this, on social media. But it's real. And So if that's part of your story, know that there is help available. Okay, back to you, girl,
Yeah.
for that little rabbit trail.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the rabbit trails. So the beginning of the next year, so my junior year, my grandma passed away. And this is a grandma that I hadn't really known very much. I had only seen her a few times when I was younger. I spoke with her over the phone sometimes, but she would always send me a birthday card every year. So I heard from her frequently. Um, but this was my dad's mom. And when she passed away, he was really emotionally affected. So we flew to Chicago. They lived in Indiana. So that was the first time I had ever flown planes. That was a weird experience to have a first, but to also like we're going to a funeral. So it was a weird time. That was actually at the funeral. That was the first time I ever really saw my dad cry. Like I could really see the pain. Um, and that, I don't know, that stuck with me for some reason. I'm not sure why yet. But after we came back, um, life went on. My mom, she had taken in my dog, Bambi. Um, she told me she no longer was able to care for her. So I found somebody to take her. I gave her to my friend and she got out. She always loved roaming the streets and she's super fast. So even if you saw her get out, she was gone. So we looked for her and looked for her, drove around the neighborhood for 2 days, and then we found her dead on the side of the road. And I'm very, very close to my animals. I don't know if you know that about me, but like they're my babies. So
Yeah.
um, so that was hard. Just after having attended my grandma's funeral, now I have to deal with losing my dog, and it was really traumatic. And I didn't realize this at the time. Everything was I was kind of just living on the surface, like accepting everything that was happening, because like new territory. It was such new territory. I didn't know what to do or how to cope with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, February of that year, 17, I met a cute young man at Jack in the Box. I was with my mom. We were just eating, and there was like nobody there. It was just us. And he worked there. He came and brought us our food personally, and we were talking about how I had been in choir and musicals, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I was in theater too, and I love to sing. I was in choir." And I was like, "Whoa, like this guy who's super cute and has a job is interested in me. Oh my goodness." My mom gave me, a slight like hushed approval, like, Okay, keep talking, keep talking." So he gave me his number and I texted him. We texted all day for 2 days in a row. Um, I mean, it was an instant connection. Um, I mean, it was crazy how much we had in common. And so Valentine's Day, jump to Valentine's Day. I was having a really good day. I had just had an interview at Domino's and I aced it. I was offered the job, my very first job, working at a pizza joint. I was excited. I got a good grade on a test that day. I remember it was a really good day. Me and my mom were getting along, which was a little rare because with her arguing with my dad, it just kind of infected everyone else's relationship too. So it was good. Like we were having a good bout, like a good section of time where we were just really getting along. And so that night she was planning on making dinner and stuff, and she suggested that I invite him over for dinner. And like I said, she was always open to bringing people over and welcoming them into the home and making them feel part of the group. So I mean, I was like, okay, yeah, it's Valentine's Day. This guy is super cute, and I think he likes me. I think I like him. This is gonna be great. So I invite him over. He comes over, and I mean, we're talking our heads off. Like just talking. It got super late. It was a school night, but he said he had to work in the morning too. It was super late, so it's like, okay, maybe he can spend the night and we can like sleep in the dining room or whatever, and he can walk me to school the next day. He was like, yeah, I can totally do that. I promise I can do that. So my mom, I wasn't expecting my mom to say yes. I just was gonna throw it out there just in case, and she did. She was willing to trust him, so I trusted that she trusted him, and everything was great. He had given a really nice impression. Like he obviously, my mom approved of him staying the night after not knowing him for very long, and yeah, he knew how to carry himself, and it looked good. So anyway, we kept talking. We were laying down, about to go to sleep. We kept talking. I was falling asleep in the middle of our conversation. I was so tired. It had been such a long day. And then he started touching me, and I was like, I'm not ready for that. We've known each other for like 2 days. Like that sounds cool, but like, and I mean, I had been promiscuous. I had been sleeping around, but I had only known him for 2 days. Like that wasn't me. Like I was more into finding a relationship and having a sexual relationship with somebody, not just hooking up and being done. But he didn't like that, and he got physical with me and threatened me, grabbed my hair, and pushed me against the pillow. Um, I'll leave the details, but it was a physical assault, and I wasn't sure what it was exactly. I ended up crying myself to sleep, and I was trying to figure out what happened exactly. Was it rape? Like, is that what that was? But I invited him over, right? Like, I let him spend the night. My mom let him spend the night. It was all like I openly let him come over and stuff. Maybe I should have screamed, even if that meant he was gonna hit me or hurt me physically. Maybe that would have been better. Maybe I should have fought harder and it wouldn't have happened. I just kept asking myself, like, was it my fault? What did I do to like make that happen?
Yeah.
I had always been told, never let someone touch you like that, and your body's a temple and stuff like that. And I swore to myself that I would never let that happen. Like I would never in a million years. So it was my fault. I thought. And so that morning he walked me to school as promised. And he asked me if we could leave early before anybody else got up. And as we left, he said, never tell anyone what we did last night. And part of me was like, okay, but why? If that was, why would he not want to talk about it, not want it to be brought up unless he was trying to hide something? So I couldn't stop thinking about it all day long, just trying to piece it together. Like, what did that mean? Like, was it my fault? Did he do it to hurt me? Like, did I do something wrong? Um, but anyway, that night I got up the courage to talk to my mom about it. I felt really embarrassed and shameful. Like I didn't really want to share it because if I did do something wrong, that's super embarrassing. Like I don't want to share that about me. I don't want to expose that about me. But she told me that it wasn't my fault. And she told me it was date rape. And I mean, I asked myself, like, was it really? So it wasn't my fault. And I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't let him do anything. He just did it anyway. And she told me that we should get the morning after pill. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Pretty sure he didn't use a condom, so that's a good idea. But it was like $50, I think, at the time. And I didn't have that. I had just accepted the job with Domino's, hadn't even started working yet. My mom didn't have a job. She was living off of alimony. And I really didn't want to tell my dad and ask him for money. So I texted him, the guy. And I asked him, like, hey, so was wondering if you could like loan me some money to get this thing, like, because you know what happened. And never heard from him. Radio silence. So, I mean, there was my mom's friend who said that she could help. So we waited until she came to town, and then she's like, actually, I don't have the money. So I didn't get it. And I waited a couple weeks and didn't get my period. So I took a pregnancy test. My sister was in town, thankfully. She was visiting her and my dad. And so she was with me when I took the pregnancy test, and she sat with me the whole time. The whole 2 minutes that it took to wait. And then when we found out that it was positive, and I sank to the ground and I started crying. I couldn't believe it. Like, what was I supposed to do from that point on? Like, I didn't know how to tell my dad. And if when I did tell my dad, he would definitely want me to keep the baby. But did I want to keep the baby? I didn't know. My mom, I knew she would support me either way. She just wanted me to be happy. I had different opinions spread throughout my friends and family, got it from all directions. And when I did tell my dad, he told me to file a police report. I had already told it, like talked about it over and over and over again. And I had to tell it to 3 different officers, and I had to write it out in a written statement a couple times. And even so, one of the officers pulled me aside and he said, "Are you sure this is what happened?"
Wow.
And I said, "What? What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I know how dads can be. And if you're just trying to escape the wrath of your dad for having sex, it's in your best interest to come forward."
Wow.
And I was so defeated. Like, here I was telling the police that I had been raped, and they didn't even believe me. Beyond that, I spoke with a different officer, and he told me that I could speak with a detective and maybe see if there was something that we could do. Um, but I mean, it was my word against his, ultimately, was what they told me. And it was just not, it just was really discouraging to know that the judicial system just they couldn't do anything or didn't want to.
Yeah.
Um, so then I started thinking about God. Like, how could God let that happen to me? Why would he be so cruel to let that happen to me? And I decided it didn't matter. I still had to make a choice whether he existed or not. I had 3 options. I could have the baby and let it remind me every day that I was raped. I could raise the baby in high school, work part-time, barely scraping by, change my mom's life too as she becomes a grandmother. And I mean, I would have to live with her most likely, and help with the rent and all that. My second option was to give it up for adoption. I thought about it. I had friends who were adopted and really they voted for that option. But I saw what pregnancy did to my mom, and her body, and she has all kinds of health problems and back problems. And I mean, I could do that. I could have the baby and give it up for adoption, but I would be changing my body forever and never reaping the benefits of being that child's mother. So I looked for another option, abortion. I could move on with my life, forget it ever happened, and then I can graduate high school with my class and then go to UNLV like I had dreamed since 8th grade. And I told myself when I was younger, growing up, middle school, most of high school, I was always pro-life. I even scoffed at girls who openly shared that they had abortions. I couldn't imagine a situation where I would choose that. And I despised people for choosing it. But I chose it anyway. And I chose myself. I was selfish. I had no faith in God at that point. And I figured if he is real, if he does exist, then this must be his plan because it's happening, right? That his plan always happens. And if he wasn't real, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anyway.
And how far along were you when you decided to have your abortion?
I was 4 weeks, but I had to wait for an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 5 weeks when I did it. My experience with Planned Parenthood was really stressful. They interviewed me to make sure that I wanted an abortion. And I was like, trust me, this, I have to. Like, this is my only option that seems right for me. And they did an ultrasound, and they showed me the sonogram, and they said, okay, you're at 5 weeks. There's no heartbeat. It's just a small amniotic sac of cells. It's not a baby, and it's just a clump of cells. That's all it is. And that's what I told myself from there on out in order to accept that that's what I was doing. That's what I decided.
Did they ever try to give you resources or another option other than abortion? I'm surprised. So I'm shocked that they did the ultrasound and let you see the pictures and things like that, because that's not my story and it's not a common story. More often than not, they don't want you to see, the baby. So it's interesting to me that they did show you the ultrasound and that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they showed it to me. I can't remember if maybe I asked to see it.
Yeah.
Because they were saying, oh, it's just a clump of cells. And I was like, okay,
Right.
I didn't want to believe them. Like, let me see. I don't know. But they didn't really offer me other options. They asked, is this what you want? Yes or no? And I said yes, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was that. Um,
And you were still 17 at this time, correct?
I was 17, yeah, junior in high school. So I had a friend offer to pay for the abortion. It was going to be over $500. And of course I didn't have that. So I was grateful to have a friend that would help me out, or help me out in a way that I thought was helping me out.
Yeah.
And I missed a week of school. I did the pill, the medicinal abortion, and I told a few people, my closest friends, what had happened and why I missed school. And my words were not held in confidence, and
Wow.
the word got out. People started gossiping about it, making up their own parts of the story and changing things and painting me to be something I wasn't.
So
But
how did that, going from that, and we're almost out of time, but I don't want to cut anything short. We can go a little bit long, but how did that abortion affect you? I mean, obviously it came with the rumors and the gossip and the, teenagers can be so cruel. So besides just that, how did the actual abortion affect you? Was it that quick fix that you had anticipated it being?
It felt like it at first, for the first year or so. I mean, I felt ashamed of it, but at the same time, I did get to continue on with my life. I started using it as a tool to encourage women. I I took on the role of feminist and pro-choice and advocated it, and I believed that it was right. I believed that I had that right and that it wasn't anybody else's business. And I mean, I got to the point where I didn't believe in God anymore. I started to explore paganism and tarot cards and Wicca. Um, I mean, I started to not care about myself. I continued to sleep around, accepting abuse, emotional abuse. Um, Eventually, I was diagnosed bipolar, depressed, PTSD, and anxiety.
Wow.
Uh, so I had a slur of medication. And of course, when you first start out, you're experimenting with different ones to see which one works and experiencing all the side effects that come with it. Um, and then I continued on in relationships, one after the other, ended up in a physically abusive relationship that ended in permanent spinal damage. Um, and at that time, I decided I'm just going to leave Vegas. I can't be here anymore. There's too much that has happened here. So I moved to California, moved closer to where my sister was. Not quite close, but close enough. Started working at Starbucks. It was an awesome job. I loved it. Um, the house I moved into, though, had fleas infested completely. I had 3 animals, so all that, and that came with worms too. So I had to deal with all of that stress of trying to care for my 3 animals and all that. And I was doing like Reiki healing and yoga and all that stuff. And then my back gave out, so I couldn't work at Starbucks anymore. And
How did you end up in East Texas? And then ultimately, like, I know you're a strong believer in Jesus Christ now. So kind of get us to that point and how you got involved with CARE.
okay, so my sister moved from California to Texas, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to stay here. Like, me and my dad weren't close after everything. So I moved to Texas, didn't have a job yet, so I had to find someone that would let me stay for free with my animals. So I found a place in Gladewater, found out about TJC, I got accepted, and was super excited to go for American Sign Language, and then moved closer to Tyler and started going to a church and got involved in the college group and found out about CARE through one of the pastor's wives. And that changed my life. That first Bible study I went to, that weekend Bible study, I went in, I was going to criticize the Bible study so hard. I went in with the expectation that I would tear it down. At that point, I was still very much pro-choice and pro-LGBT and all of that. But after that Bible study, after experiencing the weight being lifted, literally, I was a completely different person, a full 180. And
I
even
remember. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, even like my friends that I had been spending time with noticed. They were like, "What happened to you? Like, you're this new person."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when, because we had actually connected on social media through that process leading up to you going through the Bible study. And I remember praying with one of the other leaders, and she, of course, didn't know who you are at that time. And we keep everything very confidential. So there was nothing like that. But I was like, oh, girl, you got to pray with me because this girl is tough. Like she is coming with some ideas and she's very, because you at that time you would post things on social media very and like I consider myself a feminist. Like I am pro woman, hear me roar, that kind of thing, but in a more conservative, I guess, idea of that. But I'm very strong woman, very pro woman. But I also know now how desperately abortion hurts women. It doesn't help women. And so I was seeing all of these things that you were posting, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, Lord, I don't know how I'm gonna connect with this girl. And this is gonna be tough because you don't have to even be a Christian, to come through our ministry, but we're a Christian ministry and it's a Bible study. And
Yeah.
it's a very scripturally, sound walking through that journey of healing and forgiveness. And so, anyways, I was not sure how it was going to work out. And obviously, the Lord was so gracious and all of that. But
Yeah. And I mean, to wrap up everything after that, I mean, I got a job and I was able to find a place to live and support myself, and eventually led to meeting my husband. And it's been one blessing after another. Every day is a blessing. And that is so different from my perspective 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I am just a completely different person. And it's amazing what the Lord can do through ministries like CARE. I'm really grateful for CARE and for churches that advocate for CARE, and for you, BJ. I'm really appreciative of you stepping out and being a voice for girls like me.
thank you. Well, I just adore you. I love watching your journey. You have been so helpful. And what I love so much about you, Ashlyn, is that you came to us pretty cold and hardened, and with this idea of like, yeah, I'm going to do this, but I don't believe in it. And then the Lord just came in and healed your heart and healed you from your abortion and restored your relationship with him. And just to watch that journey, I mean, because you would come in, you would volunteer, and you have lots of gifts that you just poured into CARE. And now, of course, it's been a long time now, but now you're sharing publicly your story and just being so vulnerable about that. And I know that there is somebody that's going to watch this video and they're going to realize, hey, that wasn't my fault either. And I chose abortion also, and I need help. And so I thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to share that. And specifically to those of you that are watching, that's my plea to you. Regardless of how you ended up at the abortion clinic, regardless of why you chose abortion, I want you to know that there is hope and healing in Jesus Christ. And our program it's not church. It's not a super, weird thing. It's just a small group study where women who all have similar stories, at least in the idea of abortion, we just get together and we work through that trauma together. So please, please call us to get registered. Anything else you want to share, Ashlyn, before we hit end?
Just that I am so close to God, and I couldn't even imagine this type of relationship with God before, and it gets deeper every day. So thank you for calling on me to share my story, because otherwise I don't think that I would have done it. Not in this way and not anytime soon. So
well,
thank you.
well, thank you very much. And again, if you're watching this and you have abortion in your story and you're ready to get help for that, or if you know someone who needs to see this video, please like and share it. And let's just let people know that they're not alone in this pain. God bless you, and I will see you next Tuesday.